Hi guys, I'm just going to do a quick tutorial on how to knit yourself a rabbit, just like this one that I have done previously. It's a super easy project to do. You don't really need to be very advanced at knitting to do it. I'll go through all of the steps, and even if you are advanced at knitting, it's still quite a fun project to do, especially at the moment whilst we're in lockdown. So I'll go through everything that you will need. So you'll need a ball of wool. I'm using this quite thick chunky wool from B&M Bargains, and on the label of the wool that you get it will say what size needle that you should be using, so it doesn't matter what ball of wool you choose to use. It could be as thin or as thick as you want, and therefore your rabbit will be as big or small, subject to the size of your wool. So I'm going to be using 6mm needles, which I have here. If you are new to knitting, bamboo needles are meant to be really good so then the yarn doesn't slip off your needles. You will need a slightly thinner yarn or thick thread to stitch it up, because what it does involve is knitting a square or a rectangle, and then we'll knit a triangle into it to make the face. But again, that's up to you. So then you'll need a needle as well. I use a tapestry needle, or I got this set with a load of knitting needles, but I'll use one with a kind of wide bit there so the wool will go through it. I'm also going to use a different coloured ball of wool for the tail, and possibly the arms and feet if you want to use those. So therefore you will need a Pom-Pom Maker as well. I already have one of these, but if you don't have a Pom-Pom Maker, they're really easy to make your own. You can do it by, this is one that I've made before, so it's just two little C's I cut out of cardboard, and you put them together and you can make the pom-pom that way. And you'll also need a pair of scissors and some stuffing as well. It doesn't matter if you don't have stuffing. With this rabbit I just used a load of excess yarn that I've had, like different cut-offs of fabric and things, so it still worked just as well. But for now I've got stuffing, so that's what I'll be using. So we're going to cast on, and we're going to cast on 18 stitches. There's lots of different ways that people cast on, so I'm just going to show you how I do it. It may or may not be how you have learnt to cast on, but if you're new, obviously just follow what I do and hopefully you'll be able to knit. So you make a loop with your wool, bring the tail end through that loop and pull it. So you've got another loop, and there you have your slip knot, like that, if you can see. Super easy to do. A lot of people cast on with just their hands and using one needle, but I'm going to use both of my needles just because it helps me kind of get into the swing of things. So if you put your needle through the loop and kind of pull it tight, not too tight though, like that. So we're going to be doing the knit stitch. This whole square will involve knit a row, knit a row and knit a row, and we won't be purling at all, so the pattern will kind of come out like this. So it is super easy and quick to do as well, especially if you're quite advanced at knitting. So you get your yarn, loop it around the needle, and then pull it through the loop, and then hook this loop onto your needle like so. So now you have 2 stitches, and like I said, we're going to be doing 18. So now you continue, push the needle through to the back, wrap it round, pull it through, hook it on. So that's 3 stitches. We'll go on to number 4. So you can see I'm not doing it super tight at the bottom, just so that it doesn't kind of distort the shape of the square or rectangle afterwards. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I've got 11. I need to do 7 more. I always lose count of the stitches, so it's really easy to count how many stitches you've got just because of the amount of loops on your needle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So I've only got 2 more to do. 17 and 18. But again, it doesn't really matter how many you knit. If you want to knit a really big rabbit, then obviously cast on more stitches, it's up to you. It will grow once you've kind of got into the knitting all the rows. So now we're going to knit our first row. So it's the same stitch, but you just transfer it onto your other needle. So you push the needle to the back, wrap the yarn round, pull it through, and then you just slide the stitch off and that loop off the needle, and then it goes onto the other one, and that is 1 stitch. And then you just repeat that, so through, bring it to the front and push it to the back, push the needle to the back, wrap it round, pull it forward and hook it off. I'm not really going to count the amount of rows I do, I'm just going to do it until it is in a square. Which is quite good, then you don't have the pressure of kind of following a pattern, especially if you are new to knitting, because that could be quite daunting. I'm not saying that I am an expert, because I really do struggle to follow patterns, which is why I like to kind of find little projects like this to do. It does really help, and afterwards you've got quite a satisfying result as well. At first the stitches, once they go onto your needle, will kind of curl around it like that, but that's fine, they'll soon straighten out. There we go, so we've now got 2 rows, so then you just kind of spread it out onto your other needle. There's just a loop there just from where I cast on, because I didn't cast on very tightly. So there you go, it should look like that. So now what you want to do is turn this needle round so it's in your other hand and repeat. So these kind of look like little bumps, and that's kind of what's going to be on both sides. Ordinarily this would be what a purl stitch would look like, because it's kind of the back of a knitted row. Sorry if that kind of sounds like gobbledygook to you, but if you are kind of just learning it, this might confuse you a little bit. So the yarn is currently at the front of the stitch, so usually you'd kind of put the needle in at the front and do a purl stitch now, but we're just going to carry on knitting. So we need to push the needle to the back, wrap the yarn round, pull it through and hook it off. The yarn round, pull it through, wrap the yarn round, pull it through. to unravel some more of this. This could be good to do with kids as well, considering it is such an easy project, and if you don't really have very sharp needles, I used to have some kind of metal ones that were really sharp, and because I kind of push through with my fingers, I used to get really sore fingertips. Okay, so that is row 3. So again, I'll just kind of stop there and pull it off so you can kind of see the pattern forming now. So it's quite nice, and the same again on the other side. Obviously this is where we've cast on, so it looks a bit different. Again, we'll go through one more row and then I will kind of meet you back once we've got our squares, and I'll show you how to cast off and the next steps. So again, push the needle to the back, wrap the needle round, pull it through and hook it off. There we go, so you can see as well how much it has grown from when we first cast on. Obviously there wasn't very many, well there was the same amount of stitches, but it was more like that, and now it is spread out. So I'm just going to carry on knitting until I've got a square, and then I will meet you back once we've got a square. Or if you're doing a rectangle, if you've got a rectangle as well. It's completely no pressure, it's entirely up to you. We stick the needle into the back of the stitch, loop the yarn round, pull it through and put that stitch onto the needle, and then we do the same again. So we've got 2 stitches on your other needle, and then what you need to do is pull to the front of the first stitch and then pull your second stitch through it and then drop it off the needle. So I'll do that again. You push the needle to the back, wrap it round. So now we've got 2 stitches on there again. So you'll always need to have 2 stitches on here to cast off. Hook the first stitch round and use your needle to bring the second stitch through that loop and hook it off. Push the needle through the back, wrap round, push it onto your needle, hook it through, and again, wrap it round, pull it through. If you're using like slippery needles like I am, it can be quite hard, so I kind of hold my stitches at the top to make sure they don't slip off, because that can be quite frustrating. And again, pull it round, just speed things up a bit. This is probably the fiddliest part of this project. And this is where it also comes in handy when you've not done your stitches throughout mega tight, otherwise it can be quite hard to pull this loop out. Okay, so we're at the last ones now, so it's going to feel a bit weird because you've got the two last stitches on there, but it's fine, you still do it as normal. Hook that through. So now what we can do, I just kind of pull that so it's a bit loose, so it looks like that. Then you get your scissors and just snip the yarn and pull it through and tug it so it is secure. So now you've got your square. Mine's kind of shrunk a little bit, so I just stretch it out a bit. So now what we need to do is stitch a triangle into it like this. So I will show you what to do. It's not as complicated as it sounds. So I'm getting my kind of thin yarn, cutting off the length, get my needle out. Okay, so what I kind of do is just fold it in there like that, so just so I know where to stitch. So I'm kind of going to do mine like this, so my body is bigger, so I kind of just fold that in like that and mark where that's folded, and I'm just going to stick my needle through there like so, and make sure I leave that end because that will come in useful later. So then I'm going to stitch upwards, just a really loose sew. Again, it doesn't really matter how neat this is because you're not going to be able to see it. I've kind of used a different coloured wool just so it's easier for you guys to see the stitches. Then I'm going to go back down to this side now. Okay, so now I've done that bit, you need to stitch across to your first stitch. I'm just gonna have spaced it out a bit too much there, but it's good to make sure your yarn's coming out at the same side, so they're both kind of ending there. Right, so I'm happy with that, so I will just snip this yarn. So now what we have to do is we've kind of got this here now, so now it acts like a lever, so we just need to pull both of these really tight. It seems a bit weird. So now you can kind of see the rabbit shape forming. So what we need to do now is just open it up a little bit, put a little bit of stuffing in there just so the head forms its shape. There we go. And then just get your needle again. I use a thicker one now because I kind of just, it's just easier. There we go. And then you can just stitch this gap together here once it is pulled tight enough. Just to seal that. Ooh, pulled a bit too hard then. Leaving this piece of string out. Again, I just like, you can really easily like manipulate because I've used thicker wool. So you can see there that is starting to look like a rabbit, which is quite satisfying. And you can still pull this other one just as tight, just so it keeps that shape, but we will be using that piece of thread or wool in a second. Okay, so I'm going to now just kind of put the stitch inside this and leave it there. So now what I'm going to do is snip this so it doesn't get in the way so much, and then I'm going to use this piece of string to stitch the back up. And then this tail end that we've kind of done, I just kind of shove it in there as well, just so it's one less thing for us to weave in, and it'll stay hidden inside there. Alright, so I'm just going to do a knot here just to finish that off, and I'm going to snip that like so. So now you can see that we're kind of getting the rabbit shape quite nicely there. Another good idea is if you don't have any stuffing or anything to kind of stuff this rabbit with, you could maybe make little puppets. They could make really good finger puppets as well, especially if you have young children. So now I'm going to just stuff the rabbit there. You can make it as fat or as thin as you want. I'm going to just stuff mine with quite a bit, just so it, ooh. Okay, so I'm quite happy with how that looks right now. So now you just need to cut another bit of thread off to stitch up the bottom. So I always start from this side and leave the kind of thread end, if you like, at the tail end, because then we can hide it with the pom-pom that we're going to do. So again, just do a simple mattress stitch. And again, I'm going to just do, put the needle through there so it kind of ties with a bit of a knot. And snip it like so. So you can just kind of mould the rabbit into how you kind of want it to look. With this piece as well, you can just kind of stuff that in there and snip it, or if you have a wide needle you can just kind of weave it into the ear, which I will do later. I'm just going to tuck it in there so it's out of the way. Stick these ears up like so. So you can see now that the rabbit is fully formed. All we need to do now is make the tail. So I'm going to do the tail in the cream just because I think it goes quite nice with that. So I'm going to use the Pom-Pom Maker. Again, if you don't have a Pom-Pom Maker, you can just use the kind of cardboard bits just like I showed you earlier on. Make sure you've got two that are stuck together so then you can snip it through the middle just like I'm going to do on this one. I don't want the tail to be too big, so I'm not going to make it that thick. Just wrap it around a few more times for this side. And then just snip that there. Then I can shut that, and then I just do the same on the other side of the Pom-Pom Maker. Okay. So now I close that like so. So now what I do is just snip through the middle. And again. And then you just need a piece of yarn. I might as well use this bit that I've got excess to push that through the middle of this. Tie it like so and pull that bit tight and wrap it at the other side. Tie it again like so. I just kind of double knot it just to be sure. Pull it as tight as you can, but obviously don't snap the string. And you can pull that out, pull this apart, and there I have my pom-pom. So obviously some bits are a bit longer because that's what I left. So you just kind of snip it so it's nice and round. And then from here you've got your thread to attach it to your rabbit. So you go in through the back end of the rabbit like so, and then there's no real method of me stitching this on. I just kind of do as many stitches as I feel necessary so that the pom-pom is secure. So I still kind of feel like that's a bit loose, so I'm going to just stitch through the pom-pom and pull it back onto this side like so, and then just continue to stitch in there like that. And again, and just once more like so, and then I knot these together just to make sure it is secure, and then I just cut it right down so you can't tell. This is probably a bit big of a tail, but well. And there you have your rabbit. So it is optional to kind of stitch in some eyes as well. I always kind of try and get a needle and push this excess bit of thread in to the rabbit, just to hide it like so. So there we go. That is how you knit a bunny rabbit. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope that it's something that you can do, and at least now you've got like a blank canvas and to do whatever you want with the rabbit. So you can see here I've decorated mine with different buttons, a bow tie, I've stitched on some eyes and a nose, and done some little, this pom-pom's coming loose, but some hands and feet. So obviously you can do whatever you like, and hopefully it'll have made you happy and brightened your day. Knitting really does help me. It's a really good stress reliever, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed, and just doing something little like this that doesn't take a great deal of time, and you've got something at the end of it that's bound to put a smile on your face. It really does do wonders for your well-being. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and happy knitting. Thank you.